Welcome to the Now You Know Akron podcast, brought to you by the journalists of beaconjournal.com. Each week, they will share their expertise on Akron and Summit County. Now, here's your host, Craig Webb.
So for today's discussion, we're joined by our reporter, Tawney Beans, and Joe Beyer. Make sure I had the name right. Tawny's working on a special project, and we're going to launch this podcast with us. So welcome, both of you. Thank you for coming.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you for having me.
All right, Tawney, you decisions, right? I mean, this is what this is all about. And so why don't you tell us a little bit about the project and this installment?
Yeah, so essentially, I am writing a series of stories about what people within the age group of 25 to 44 think about big life decisions, specifically life decisions related to the American dream. So a lot of times when people think of what the American dream looks like, they're coming home from their, office job to their white picket fence and their doting spouse and 2.5 kids. So the 5 things I'm working on or specifically thinking about for this series is the buying a house, becoming a parent, retiring, starting or changing careers, and then getting married. So those are kind of the big decisions most people have to think about at some point in their lives, at least in America. And so, yeah, that's kind of where it's all coming from.
Gee, I don't think I fit any of those. I'm 54, so I'm not in the age group. I don't have a white picket fence. I had 5 kids, but I do have a yellow lab. I think that's kind of cliche in a cat. So maybe, I clicked some of the boxes. Well, Joe, welcome. I believe you live in Akron. Are you an Akronite?
I live in Cuyahoga Falls.
Oh, I was so close. Just
yes,
well,
close.
So how do you fit in Tawny's decisions and
well,
I didn't check all the boxes. Do you check any of the boxes?
Oh, I fall in the age group. I am 43. I do not have any kids. I've never been married. I do not have a house. I rent a gorgeous 1-bedroom apartment here in the Falls that I love to pieces. And I have a motorcycle. So I love my job. It's a newer job to me. It's not even a career for me. I went to college, have a bachelor's degree in education, taught for a little while, and then decided I didn't really like it. So I jumped in and did a few odds and ends jobs, worked for Speedway, did some web designing. And about 4.5 years ago, I interviewed at Rubber City Harley Davidson and have the best life in the world. I have an awesome group of friends. I just couldn't imagine my life without the Harley world. And so I am all for anyone who is not enjoying their life finding something that changes that, I guess, whether it be a career or a house or moving to another state. I think that if you find yourself that you're not enjoying your day-to-day world, you need to make a major life decision and change that. That's, I guess, kind of what I feel.
I guess I'm curious. I mean, you've made a lot of decisions in your life, and we make decisions every day, right? We're going to wake up, get out of bed. I mean, that's a huge decision for me every day. But did you feel any? I mean, I guess I'm curious about your peers a little bit. Did you feel pressure to be kind of following their decisions? I mean, were you an outcast? Not to say outcast, an outlier, or did you find a lot of folks of your peers were kind of making decisions, getting married later, and just those type of life choices?
Honestly, not until I really started working for Harley. I am definitely when I went to high school, I graduated with like 72 kids in a very small town, Attica, Ohio, 100 miles away. And a lot of my friends got married and had kids and, lived 5 miles away from home. I have 2 sisters. One of them lives 5 miles from my parents' house with her kids. And I just knew growing up, I didn't want that yet. I wasn't ready to get married. I did not want to have children. And I was not going to get stuck in a world that I didn't enjoy. I knew I wanted to love my life. And I knew that right off the rip that I marriage wasn't right there for me, and it still isn't. It's just, I guess it's whether it's social norms or not, you have to make the decision to be happy. And I want to be happy no matter whether society agrees with my version or not. I'm okay with that.
Well, I don't think society disagrees. I mean, every decision is great. So what about your housing? I mean, do you think you ever have that desire to own your own home, or what are the benefits for you, believe, in renting as opposed to owning?
Well, the best part about renting is when my heat goes out, I call my landlord and he fixes it immediately. That's the easy part of being a single female, is that it's just really nice not to have to worry about if my hot water tank goes out, or shoveling the driveway when we had that 15 inches of snow a few weeks. That's not, I mean, I did some of my own shoveling, but the landlord came and plowed it and the streets were plowed. As that, those day-to-day inconveniences aren't necessarily my monetary concern. And so that's probably the best thing about it. Plus, I'm one person. I don't need 3 rooms to furnish. That's a lot of expenses also, is if you start talking about you've got 5 rooms to furnish, you've got 5 rooms to furnish. You need a kitchen table, you need coffee tables, more chairs. I don't need seating for 19 people. I don't want seating for 19 people. And so therefore the 1-bedroom apartment is perfect for me. I have enough stuff already. I have plenty of closet space. And so therefore, maybe in 50 years, I'll be ready to move home to the family farm and live that way. Because my dad does have land and there will be inheritance and that sort of thing. But it's 50 years down the road. Right now, I have no desire whatsoever to buy a house.
So you grew up in a family farm. What kind of farm was it? Dairy, or was it?
Pigs. We raised pigs and then farmed. Dad had a little more than 900 acres, and some of it's woodland, some of it's homestead, and but corn, wheat, and soybeans.
So for those of us who are listening, and maybe we have a viewing option coming up here, and I'm not sure if this will be one of them, but you do have red hair, and you're very striking red hair, and you grew up on a farm. I mean, you really, you didn't follow that small town rural Ohio life. I mean, you work for a Harley dealership. I mean, you're single and you have red hair. I mean, it was probably a very dramatic. I mean, you made some really dramatic life decisions in many ways. I mean,
and that's just it, is it? And there's been times where I've got to stop and think, and I call friends and I call mom and dad, and I'm like, listen, I love my life, and they can hear it in my voice, and they just support that. We don't always agree. We are a typical family but we argue and we talk about it and we move on and we love each other. So I know Tawney's mom. I've met some awesome female writers that are just strong-willed and independent women, and they just help celebrate every little milestone that you make. And it's so wonderful to have people like that just want to see you succeed and do whatever they can to help that. And I truly believe that's a biker thing, that they just will help anybody.
So I'm probably gonna show my ignorance, but aren't Harleys also called hogs? Am I right, or am I?
Yeah,
So it's kind of ironic, right? So you went from a pig farm to hog, so it's not like a big stretch, I suppose. But Tawney,
Harley hogs are much more fun to ride. I will tell you that.
Tawney, what's your thoughts? I mean, how did Joe fit in when you're doing your research and all this? I mean, everyone has their own stories, right? I mean, it's kind of, we all. I kind of did the married, bought a house. I mean, I really literally followed the cliche path, perhaps. But in your thoughts and what did you find in your own research on this? I mean, is Joe typical, a little bit more common now that folks are getting married later? I mean, I know in my situation, my own daughters, I mean, our oldest is, she's 26. We were married by then. I mean, my wife and I think Jennifer was 21 when we got married. And so, my own kids are kind of following a different path. I mean, in their decision, their life, and just not doing what I did.
Gotcha. Yeah. So I would say, Joe, you are still a bit of the outlier, at least in my with my research of what I've done. I've talked to, including Joe, total of 12 people. trying to get from all walks of life in and kind of around Summit County. Everyone that I've talked to, I believe, either has a house or wants to have a house. Now, saying that, definitely the pattern that so I would say a good portion of the people I talk to, if they have kids, they are single parents. And they mention it's hard for one person. Even just the people I've talked to, talking to some of, Craig, our coworkers, telling them about this, and they kind of ask like, well, are the people that are having an issue, are they single? Because it's hard when you're just one person. I'm just by myself. I live in a 1-bedroom apartment, and I'm like, I can't imagine having to afford a house because I think of doing it. It's just me. So from what I've seen, a lot of people, Joe, as far as I know, everyone else has been like, they want a home. A lot of them are struggling. And I was kind of surprised to find that, I just thought I'm not, I'm 22, so I'm not technically in this 25 to 44 age group. But I expected it to be student debt was the number one reason that most people were having issues. Almost overwhelmingly, people said it was credit, which I was not expecting to be why they were having issues trying to afford a house, or the thought of getting a house is very daunting because of that. And that it's not really taught in schools and all the things that come with being misinformed on that. So I thought that was kind of interesting to at least to learn about. I'm kind of learning through other people's experiences as I go with this. So it's been very enlightening, especially with that.
Well, Joe, you kind of have this kind of perfect storm a little bit in some ways to even want to buy a house. Rates are great. They were low interest rate, but yet housing costs are so skyrocketing. And to buy a house, we even just got a unsolicited estimate of our house, and I'm like, it's a lot more than we paid. But the question is, if I were to buy a house or sell my house, where am I going to go to find somewhere affordable that I even cash out my equity? It's almost like trading off. That I just kind of wonder, in apartment prices, are you finding that your rates are going up? Living in apartments are getting more expensive?
Mine, I've lived in the same apartment for 3 years. My landlord is fabulous. My rent has never gone up. My utilities are included. It's barely $600 a month.
Wow.
Yeah, I am extremely lucky. It's a very small 5-unit building, 5 women, different various ages, different various jobs, and it's fabulous. We take care of each other. If Amazon takes the package to the wrong door, it shows up where it's supposed to. I had one of the girls the other day actually opened the Amazon package because she didn't read it and she felt horrible. And I'm like, well, I'm just glad it wasn't, unmentionables or, underwear or something like that. You know what I mean? But at this, it's just, we help each other out when we can. I was going to the grocery store the other day and just wanted to make sure and brought a half-gallon back of milk for one of the other girls. That it's definitely a small mentality here with rural community. We've still got my neighbors back. There was somebody was stuck in the street and everybody came with shovels to help. That you just got to be in the right neighborhood, I guess.
I'm curious how the pandemic has impacted you a little bit. Has it changed the way your approach to life and just your thoughts on things?
Not really. So Rubber City was shut down for 4 weeks at the very beginning of the pandemic last year. And then we went right back to work. We're still selling motorcycles, still selling leather coats to the guys that ride, having wonderful events. We've had a couple of really big events this season already. And so, no, it really hasn't changed. And I think that's because bikers, you can't tell us what to do. We want to ride our motorcycles. We want to enjoy each other's company, and we want to be out there. And so as soon as the weather changes, we're out there. And I don't think that the pandemic has changed any of that for me at all.
So Tawney knows that I'll ride off on a sidetrack and easily get distracted. So I'm curious about, in terms of Harleys, had nothing to do with decision, but I guess it's a decision. Is it hard to buy a Harley? We hear about all these shortages and automotives and because of parts and things. Could I walk in and get a Harley? Do I have to order it? I'm curious, how available.
Off the floor, we have everything from brand new 2022s that have 3 miles on them to used bikes that are $5,000-$6,000. It all depends on what you're looking for. A lot of it boils down to credit and what you want to pay every month. and what you can afford to pay every month. It's worse. It's just like a car payment. You have to have numbers in mind when you come in and talk to us.
So
But
we
no,
don't,
not a problem.
you aren't experiencing the shortages that we've heard in the automotive side of like people want a Toyota whatever and they have to wait 6 months before they can even get it. So that
Not
should,
typically, no. And we have great inventory. I'm lucky. The owner of Rubber City Harley Davidson owns Ohio Motorcycle Group. And so he actually has 4 dealerships that we can pull inventory from. And he's been in the world for a while. Our general manager and sales manager have been in the Harley Davidson industry for long enough that we can find the bike you're looking for. And we have great relationships with other dealerships, even out of state, to find you what you're looking for.
you mentioned earlier about the family farm. Where do you see yourself 15 years from now? You still see yourself in Cuyahoga Falls, or maybe you see yourself back in rural America?
I don't see, not in 15 years. I'm hoping my parents are still around and I'm just helping out here and there where dad needs me. I love going home and going to the woods with my dad on the mule with the dog and the chainsaw and just being his daughter and having fun that way, or helping mom take care of the house. I'm really not looking for that in the next 15 years just because of what else that means. I'm extremely lucky in the sense that both of my parents are still alive and still together. And so therefore I'm going to not look at 15 years down the road because I'm afraid of what else that means.
It sounds a little bit like a Hallmark movie plot. The dog, a mule,
So,
the chainsaw, going into the woods, and maybe cut down a Christmas tree or something. But
yeah.
What advice would you give to someone who like yourself who, making these, this young Tawney who might decide maybe marriage or whatever it is? I'm not speaking for Tawney, but it just using her as an example. Someone who decides to make those decisions to have a more independent life. Is there anything you learned from your journey that you would share and impart wisdom to others?
Don't defend it. I do not have to defend the way I want to live to anybody. Do what makes you happy, and that's all you have to tell people. And if they don't understand it, then they don't understand it. But don't ever feel like you need to defend your life choices.
So you are in your 40s, and you do have a little bit of, life experience. I'm in my 50s, and I can look back even when I was 20. I mean, do you think you'd have to defend it now? I mean, do you think the society changed enough that people don't really like, you're going to follow this path? I mean, don't you think it's a little bit more accepting, or what's your thoughts?
Sometimes every now and then I get the person that, what do you mean you're 43 and you don't have children, or you've never been engaged or married or any of that? I think it's more of the fact that I'm just abnormal, whatever you want to call it.
Oh, I wouldn't say you're abnormal. You're
No,
you're normal, right? I mean, you're normal.
well, and that's just it. Is it just, I am eternally grateful that some of those choices or problems, or I have made some decisions in my life and that I could have had children. I'm glad that I'm not a single parent, because I can't even imagine. I have friends that are, and it's difficult, and we just do what we can to help her out. And so I think that it's not so much trying to defend them. It's more, I'm not the social norm. Most women my age have a children or two and are going, doing it alone. And I'm just eternally grateful that I don't have to, and I can help others out that maybe are in that situation.
Well, I think one last final big question is, what kind of Harley do you own?
So I don't have a Harley. I have a Suzuki Intruder 800. I am new to the riding scene. I just got it last March. And so therefore I'm really liking the V-Rods. And so I think that's probably what I'm going to end up with someday down the road. But if you know Harleys, a V-Rod is one of their fastest bikes, and it's definitely not a beginner's bike. So I'm going to ride my 800 Intruder and enjoy my life.
Well, thank you. I think we're right off in the sunset, and maybe to a pig farm and somewhere in Ohio. But well, thank you both so much, and this was a great conversation, and I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Craig.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Thanks, Tawney.
No problem. It was nice seeing you virtually, Joe, and learning more about you and everything. It's been